Thank you. I appreciate the recognition, and it's a great honor to be a member of this class and a member of this Congress. I can testify, having spent really a lifetime in local and state government, about the talent level that exists in this class and, to be honest, in this Congress. There are numerous people who are committed to issues and have a wealth of talent and knowledge, and they put that to work on a daily basis to try to come up with the best solutions for the American people for a new direction in this country. The gentlemen I'm with are four of the leaders in this class and in this Congress. I really want to commend the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Yarmouth, for bringing this Article 1 issue to the fore. The op-ed written in the New York Times by Mr. Adam Cohen really brought forth all the points that Congressman Yarmouth thought about when he brought this campaign to our attention, and the freshman class adopted it. Article 1 does make it clear that Congress makes the laws, and Congress is where the power starts, and it's really supposed to be the strongest arm of government because it truly represents the people. In this House, there are 435 members. Each member in the history of this House, and there have been about 10,000 people who served in this House over history, have been elected. Nobody, if there's a vacancy, gets appointed. In this place, not like the United States Senate or your state legislature, there aren't any interim appointments. Every person is elected by the people at home and are supposed to represent those people. I think it happens here. This House needs to assert its power, and one of the areas where it's been doing it, particularly in the Government Reform Committee, which Mr. Waxman chairs, and been looking into actions of this administration, is also the Judiciary Committee, where I'm blessed to be a member with Chairman John Conyers. We've had the opportunity to look into the Justice Department, which Mr. Hodes brought up. And the Justice Department, we found, has politicized that office to the extent that it's really embarrassing, I think, to us as members of the committee, members of us particularly who are attorneys and know what the attorneys and judges are supposed to be in terms of being impartial in the way they mete out justice. And I think to the judiciary at large in this country. The politicalization of that office has been greater than I think in any time in the history of this country. The cases that have been brought, we have found, have been based oftentimes on the politics of who the defendant is. We had a discussion last week of a case in Mississippi where one gentleman was indicted and another gentleman was not investigated. The gentleman did the same exact thing. They each guaranteed loans, which was legal in Mississippi, to a Justice Diaz of the Supreme Court who was running for election to the Supreme Court. One gentleman made contributions, guaranteed a contribution of $65,000. Another gentleman guaranteed contributions of $80,000. The gentleman who guaranteed the $65,000 was indicted and tried in a federal court. The gentleman that made the $80,000 contribution wasn't indicted or even investigated. They each loaned a home to Justice Diaz when he had family problems and needed a new place to stay. They were co-owners of the homes, Mr. Scruggs and Mr. Minor. The one gentleman, who was the man that made the $65,000 loan and was indicted for loaning his home to this Supreme Court justice. The other gentleman wasn't. What were the difference in the gentlemen? Well, one man was one of the top 10 contributors to John Edwards for president, a Democrat. One man supported Democrats and trial lawyer issues in Mississippi. He was indicted. He was convicted the second time, and he's now started serving 11 years in jail and was fined $4.5 million, 15 times what was recommended. The other gentleman, a man named Dickie Scruggs, was also a trial lawyer. He wasn't even investigated. He did the same exact thing. He donated $500,000 to Republican activities, $250,000 to the Bush-Cheney reelection effort. And he, for whatever reason, may have nothing to do with it. He happens to be the brother-in-law of one of our colleagues in the Senate, Trent Lott. So you look at that case, and it's hard for anybody to look at it and think that there wasn't politically selective prosecutions, which makes Lady Justice have to turn her eyes and maybe shed tears at what's happened in Mississippi. And that's happened in Alabama, where a governor was indicted and convicted of things that ordinarily wouldn't even be investigated. We've seen U.S. attorneys, Republicans, appointed by President Bush, fired because they didn't go after Democrats, or they didn't go after voting rights, voting actions that the people in the Republican Party wanted pursued. So oversight's real important. In Judiciary Committee, we've seen it. And the Justice Department, I mean, that's an area where Caesar's wife should be beyond reproach. Every area of government should be beyond reproach, but justice first. Justice is supposed to be blind, and justice has not been blind, and the work of Chairman Conyers and his staff and the members of that committee have exposed much of that. This Congress has done a lot of good. The idea that Mr. Yarmouth brought up from the President, where he suggests we've been wasting time, that's ridiculous. The fact that he's tried to veto bills or has vetoed bills and threatened vetoes shows we've been doing some things that are effective and good. Minimum wage should have happened years ago. We finally got a minimum wage, and the people at the bottom of the economic ladder needed that step up. We passed a minimum wage. And people that need a step up and a start with college educations, they got Pell Grant increases. They got the cost of their loans reduced, so they won't be saddled with high interest rates in the future on their loans. To help kids get a start and go to college, and not, when they get out, have a tremendous debt to pay back, is important. To be able to have Pell Grant money to give them a better start is important. And these are two of the best initiatives that I think we've seen. When I was a state senator, I worked on college scholarships and I worked on the minimum wage. And I'm happy to be in a Congress that's seen both of them effectuated and made a change. We've looked at global warming. We've passed some bills that require renewable energies. And we've looked at bills that will help clean up our environment, which is definitely in jeopardy. And we've looked at the budget, which has been really, we've put our future generations in debt, this administration and this Congress, by spending, not having a pay-go bill. And the future of this country is in jeopardy because of the recklessness of the past Republican Congress and this President for spending too much money, sacrificing our goodwill overseas with a foreign policy that's been reckless. After we had a President in Bill Clinton who had a balanced budget, a surplus in fact, and the respect of the world for this country. We've lost the respect of the world, we've lost our budget surplus, and finally we've restored a modicum of fairness by giving an increase to the minimum wage, increases to kids going to college, help with health care, and work on the environment. So I'm very proud to be a member of this Congress, this class and this Congress, and the differences you see are healthy and good. And rubber stamps shouldn't exist in government. There should be healthy debate, and the conflict of ideas produces better ideas, and that's why this Democratic Congress is so important to the future of the country. Thank you, sir.